Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on yet another episode of the Weekly Beats. And I'm coming to you from Senegal in Dakar. I'm joined by my co-host, Dumi Jere, who is joining us from Eswatini. I don't know which city you're in, Dumi, but how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I mean, we're following the Basketball Africa League here in Senegal, so by default, I find myself having a fantastic week of free games. Not free games, but having fun, having the games in the same city I am in.
You must be having fun. I envy you.
Not so much. So as we've been, hearing what's going on, there has been so much we've seen in the past couple of weeks, I think 2 to 3 weeks, with the Russian invasion in Ukraine. I mean, that subject is something that has been covered extensively, but I think on 24th February, Russia invaded Ukraine, demanding that NATO removes its forces at the border of its country with Ukraine. And I think this has seen a lot of impact. Let me just bring you in as we kick this off. For you, these events that we're seeing, obviously, some people have said, it could be World War III, it could be this and this and that. But what do you make of all of this?
So for me, I think it's just sad, the loss of human lives and the displacements of livelihoods. I think that's the thing that I worry about the most. I was seeing images of very young kids in basements, in bunkers, and it's really not a nice picture. Lots of people trying to flee. So, from a humanitarian perspective within Ukraine, it's really troubling what we are seeing. But in the global scheme of things, it's got an impact even on us in Africa. The price of oil keeps on rising because there's so much instability in the market currently. I mean, I don't know where you stay, but in all across SADC, fuel prices have gone up, and traveling is now getting more expensive. And the ripple effect. Once fuel goes up, it means the cost of delivering food goes up, which means food costs more, which means everything else follows in that. So, I mean, that's just one example of something that we are feeling the impact of. All of the things that are happening in Russia, we're feeling the impact here.
I mean, I read somewhere with analysts saying that the impact is going to be huge on Africa. And to be honest with you, for me, I tend to look at the positive. And we sent out a newsletter in the Third Opinion recently, I think last week,
Yes.
around what the impact could be. But obviously, someone would say that, how are we feeling this pinch? Russia is so far away, or even Ukraine, but countries have been doing a lot of trade with Ukraine. The other day, somebody said to me, we do so much trade with Ukraine, and that was in Rwanda. But also the sanctions now placed on Russia means that, Russia has been supplying a lot of, mostly its oil to Europe. With these sanctions, us being on a show that is purely business and investments, I want us to look at it in a different perspective. And this is where, for me, I come in to say there could be a chance, in terms of Europe turning to Africa to be able to get their oil. There is also like an opportunity, especially for African countries, many of whom, 40% of the new oil discoveries have been in Africa. These guys need to sell their oil. So for me, I'm like, okay, there is something that really could work for us here. And I don't want to say it's smiling. It's a global crisis, but ideally, we say, for me, I look at it in a way that it's there are negotiations, obviously. A lot of things I'm hoping, and my hope, especially with what happens with the UN and NATO, I hope a lot of things are solved as soon as possible.
So, I mean, You are right. A few countries actually are sensing, call it long-term growth opportunities from the crisis,
Yeah.
because there's been so much dependence on Russia when it comes to certain things. So, I mean, you are in Senegal, so Senegal could actually be in a position where it benefits from Europe's energy diversification, like you're saying. That
Mm,
we could say to Europe, well, there's Africa. Because, I mean, when you look at Senegal, so Senegal has got about 40 trillion cubic feet of natural gas,
mm,
and production is expected to begin later this year. So that's just Senegal. Nigeria is already a supplier of liquefied natural gas to several European countries. If they embark on a venture with Niger and Algeria on
mm,
the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline, that will then increase the exports of natural gas to European markets. Um, it takes me back to to a comment that was made by the Tanzanian president,
president.
Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan, when they had the European Union and African Union summit in mid-February, just days before Russia went ahead with this whole thing. She stated something along the lines that the tensions in Ukraine are generating growing interest in her country's gas reserves, because Tanzania
Mm,
has got reserves which are sixth largest in well, in Africa, right? So that's pretty huge. So because Mama Hassan has got a more business friendly approach, she has opened negotiations already with entities in the hope of attracting,
mm,
about 30 billion in foreign investment to
mm,
revive construction of, the various offshore liquefied natural gas fields. So, from just an gas and energy perspective, this is actually an opportunity for Africa to double up and increase the export to the European
mm.
continent, since Europe relies so much on this gas. Um, that's just, as we're talking about
Yeah.
gas as well as oil.
I mean, the conversation around gas do me now that you've given us these facts, and it's really good to also show the audience that there is this. We already have 17 countries
Mm,
that are already exploiting their oil and gas. There is a
yeah,
huge opportunity, of course. Lots of discoveries in East Africa, in West Africa, in North Africa, every corner of Africa.
yeah.
But the question for me, when I look at it now, it reminds me of the minerals like gold and cobalt, the
Mm,
story that we're
mm,
seeing all over. So my question is,
yeah.
it might be an opportunity in disguise as well, because, okay, if Europe turns to Africa, do we have the potential to negotiate better deals? Are we in that position to not sell out our natural gas like how we've done with the minerals? And I don't want to say sell out, but the thing is, when we look deeper into trade and agreements and all the stories we've done around Africa's date or investments in Africa, there is always a case of it's not been fairly done. Doing business in
Mm.
Africa has not been fairly done. So is it a question of Europe turns to Africa to negotiate better deals that help the African economies, or do they engineer the African political sphere to be able to to get better deals with the gas? And
Yeah.
ideally, this even takes years. Like a deal could be signed, and 50 years down the road, you haven't benefited anything. So it is an opportunity that is also scary, and I think we need to face it. I don't know if
Mm.
we have the potential to really be in a place to better negotiate. And, this is a crisis. I don't think anyone has the patience to say, we're going to do this and that. I mean, it's something to think of.
Well, I think look at it this way: we're already exporting to these countries. All we are saying is let's
Mm,
increase the cap. I mean, the output, and let's take advantage of these sanctions that have been slapped on. Right. So it's to me, it feels like we already negotiated the terms already. Now what we're doing is
mm,
doubling up the volume or tripling up the volume to then obviously increase the revenues on our side. I mean, for example, if you look aside from natural gas,
Mm,
The the sanctions that were put on Russia, they might benefit. I mean, you were talking of minerals just now. So you look at South Africa, for example. South Africa, after Russia, so South Africa is number two, right? Russia. So South Africa is the world's second biggest producer of palladium. Now you may wonder where we use palladium
mm,
from. It's a critical that we put in cellular phones, in laptops, and so forth. So
mm,
experiencing growing demand as a result of international sanctions on Russia means we just need to double up on our production and ship out more
mm.
volumes. And when it comes to negotiating, really, I'm trying to be politically correct, but Europe is more in a fix currently. So we have the upper hand as Africa, and we need to capitalize on that.
And obviously, with all that, also doubling up demand, a lot of that comes with the need for infrastructure to be able to do some of these big projects, and that
Yeah.
also, requires investment, which we have to get from from FDIs that come in. So it creates not just this, but also we'll see several investors coming in. But Dumi, I feel like the world is shifting a certain way. Do you have that feel as well? Like looking at how Russia and China have also really grown they have really expanded their foot on the continent, and they have really done it in the past couple of years in a way that I don't know if all of us saw it coming. Of course, we saw China coming, but
Yeah.
Russia was we saw China coming. But that kind of friendship and expansion they've had across the continent in the past couple of years. And remember, when you look at the UN resolution, the number of African countries that voted yes,
Or
no,
the
and
ones that
again.
abstained.
Yeah, there's something that it tells about it. It's like, okay, what's going on, Africa? Are we in? Are we divided? Are we like it's like a message sent to the West, but also it's an interesting trend to see for me. What did you think about that?
So, so obviously, some countries like South Africa, Zimbabwe, they had to sort of navigate carefully the vote thing because they've been beneficiaries of uh, the relations that have existed between their respective countries and Russia. So they're sort of having to, play a delicate juggling game. The one thing, though, that I don't know whether this is a good thing or bad thing, but the one thing that African governments had done was sort of diversify their reliance from the West to the East. So they were now doing trade with both blocks, so the West as well as the East. And this enabled them to diversify the trade, the investment, as well as the various aid options. China has really funded lots of infrastructure projects across our continent. Sadly, but it was more of protecting one's interests. They say you should know where your bread is buttered, right? So you're right. There's a shift in how the world is behaving now and where the power is. The West, for a long time, has always been viewed as this bully. They have a head boy mentality. They want to bully everyone. They dictate the human rights, but sometimes they don't even see the abuses that are going on in their own home grounds. So everyone now is now standing up and saying, the likes of Russia and China, they're standing up and saying, nope, we're not going to listen to you. In fact, we are going to stop relying on some of the things that we relied on from you. So it makes for a very interesting global space.
At the end of the day, we're quite far away. But for me, the question is, as an investor, as a business person watching this show, what is in it? Like, what would you tell me?
I'll tell you to position yourself in the industries that directly or indirectly supply to Europe, because the demand, since most of Europe was looking to Russia to get most of those resources, and they have sanctioned Russia. So now they're looking for new markets. So if you're an investor, you actually don't have to be, for example, say a big player in the liquid natural gas. Just find something that you can buy to those companies that are doing that kind of stuff. So putting yourself well, align yourself with the mines that do gold in the continent.
Yeah.
Find out how we can get them, because like I'm saying, we are now going to be doubling up on the volumes. Therefore, there's going to be a need to double up on what do you call this, the raw materials that assist us to get those volumes out. So as if I were to advise anyone, I think that's what I would say: stay close to markets or to the industries that
Yeah.
supply to Europe.
And to add on that, for me, as we wind up, because I know we're running out of time, there's been also a realization, I can't go without touching on this. There's been a realization of how the media views Africa, Asia, and Middle East vis-a-vis Europe. I mean, there are double standards, and I think now we understand where we belong in their mentality in terms of, like, we are, to them, I think some parts of the world are secondary, like you come as second citizens. And this is what I keep saying: investment should not only be in minerals or whatever. I mean, there has to be a need to retell our story and own the narrative. I mean, Somalia,
Yes.
Sudan, all these countries still have that, but no one really cares. But there's so much money at stake, there's so much investments at stake. But most importantly, let's not just forget, about investing in storytelling. I mean, there's a chance, but also there's a realization in owning our own story, because let's face it, the big global companies don't really care. And at the end of the day, it's platforms like Mansa or platforms elsewhere, not just to say we're blowing up our own trumpet, but that will really tell this story. And seeing at how people have, even labeled the word civilization while covering this war, for me leaves questions like, okay, where are we in this world? Where is our place in this world? But nevertheless, we keep moving. Dumi, I know we've run out of time, as always, and thanks a lot for making time today. Everyone else who has joined us from wherever you've joined from, thanks a lot. Follow us on social platforms, Mansa Media _Africa, or go to our website, www.mansamedia.africa, and keep up to date with our newsletter that goes out every Friday morning, The Third Opinion. Get the third perspective from our editor on the stories that make news throughout the week. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a very beautiful week.